So this is Camp Creator.
Hello everyone, my name is Joe Kendrick. A year and a half ago, I wrote a musical called Camp Creator, which I've recently had performed as a stage reading at the Homewood Theater. The performance has been recorded, and we have turned it into an album with the help of mixer Adam Murdock.
So I'm a mix engineer in town. I do plugin development as my day job, but Joe approached me this project, and we know each other from college, and I was really excited. I've not worked on a musical. I don't listen to a ton of musicals. This was a really fun challenge for me. What were some of the challenges about recording live?
Well, this was recorded in Homewood, Alabama, and we had a technical director on set, Preston Cross, who really helped kind of supervise the recording of it. Really, I tried to stay out of the technical details and just let him work. But we got really lucky with a couple of things. Because I've done a couple of edits of live audio, and I've never been lucky to get all the audio straight from the console, separated out by channel. And so luckily enough, Preston was able to get that all technically figured out so that we could have a really easy edit with access to all the separate vocal channels. Yeah,
so they recorded on an X32 with a bunch of dynamic microphones, like a 58s. I didn't notice in the videos what they were. It doesn't really matter. But in terms of approach for me, my thought was like treating it more like live sound stuff I've done. So a lot of the signal chain was focused on noise reduction and then like just EQ timbre reduction of like things that are not good. Because we couldn't really tune. You can't really put a ton of reverb on to cover things up because that doesn't sound cool or sound good for the genre, right? Like if I'm doing something ambient and like other projects, I'll lean on that, but I can't for this.
I have many dreams of many silver screens. I see that all to mean I'm just a drama.
How we started was we got all the tracks imported into Pro Tools by song because it was 3 hours of audio otherwise, and we couldn't load it all. We made a preset that worked for most of the songs per channel, which was just a mixture of EQ, compression, and de-essing, which was varied by channel, like by person, like what they needed. Like, for example, Joe needed plosives, so I had to put a little dynamic EQ band to just dip out. Like when we went, I shouldn't have done that in the microphone.
I've got a spark that's deep down inside that I'm trying to make into fire. I'm jealous of all of the stars, 'cause they all shine so much brighter.
So let's go over the vocal treatment real quick. I have my notes here. We did a lot of stuff during the process, so I try to take notes and condense it down to something that made sense. Each person had their own tweak on the preset, but everyone had the same vocal chain with one exception. Generally, we had a high pass at 60 to remove like any noise of like electrical noise, if there is any, or like hand bumping noises, like if I went bam on the mic stand, like that kind of thing. Then we had an EQ that was generally used to like cut and reduce things, to treat things specific to that vocal. So for example, on Joe's mic, I'm going to pick on you a lot because everyone did a great job, but Joe I can pick on for sure. I had to add some dynamic EQ to reduce plosives. I had to boost things up, and then some people needed a little bit of boost there. Some people needed a little bit of telephone frequency to kind of bounce forward in the mix a little bit. After that, we de-essed the vocal. So that varied by person, like how their S's or plosives sounded. Then we compressed it a little bit, like not much, because Joe wanted to be very organic, and people were very intentional with their performance volume and where they stood with the mic, which is very key. Having done live sound stuff, if you have someone who will lean back when they sing, sorry, I probably shouldn't have done that with the microphone. But for example, if you have someone that talks loudly and then steps away, that's very helpful when you go to do it later because you don't need to ride the fader as much. But we only did like 3 to maybe 4 dB of compression per vocal, which was pretty subtle. It was pretty subtle. I used pretty much the Fab Filter suite for all of this, and that stuff sounds incredible. So that was great to use that. Thanks, Fab Filter guys, for the NFR trade. And then we had some more cleanup with more EQ after the compression, because sometimes compression can bring out more artifacts. Generally, that's where I did more boosting. So if I wanted to boost a little bit of 1K on someone, I would do it there, just because it's all kind of consistent level wise. And then at the end of the session, like the 2-bus, we put a master limiter, like a oh crap limiter, that just prevented any true peak overs, which is just, yeah, it's there just in case we need it. We didn't need it, but I always do that in a session just for not to blow out speakers and things like that. and then I sent it to Joe, and Joe did some more additional mixing. You did the panning, and then you chose the reverb and all that. You also, very importantly, edited out a lot of background noise, right?
I did, yeah. I mean, what I was willing to do was essentially, I guess I brought Adam on board because there was a couple of things I didn't want to figure out because I didn't have the experience as a mixer of vocal processing and figuring out for different voices how to EQ them differently and what frequencies to boost or suppress. That was the kind of thing that was like, that's out of my wheelhouse. Let me bring in a mixer who's more qualified to do that. But what I'm willing to do is the grunt work of going in and editing out some of the plosives as well and some of the hard mic hits and things being bumped around and noises and egregious page turns. So I was willing to go through and edit those out. Also, when one person was singing, I would go down and decrease the volume of the rest of the mics. And I just did that manually just throughout the process, which having written the show, that wasn't really that bad because off the top of my head, I knew, oh, this is a scene with only 2 characters. I can just turn down the rest of the mics. So really that it wasn't that hard of a process. Mm-hmm. It did take a little bit of work, but I was willing to do that, the grunt work in that regard. But the really because it's an art and a science, mixing audio. And it's something that you have to have an ear for it and experience. And I really didn't want to have the blood on my hands of making the creative decisions of how to process the vocals.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had done the editing ahead of time, but I think it made it easier, the fact that it was all treated, so it's more tolerable to get through. Tolerable is probably not the right word, but it's more, it's a more even performance, so it's a little easier to edit, because you have 12 microphones all going at once in that room, and they're all out of phase with each other, so you can't really do much treatment on that microphone without being too obvious, because if it's obvious, then you affect all the other things around it. So every signal that comes through that microphone, you have to kind of consider all the different things. So that's one of the reasons editing out the silences or unused portions might be good. And then in terms of mastering, once Joe came back with the balances of his version of the mix, we met together and went through and made another template, because there's 23 songs?
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
So we went through, not prototypes, but made a template for everything, and then set it up to be the level it needs to be for streaming. In terms of mastering, Joe did all the bounces. So we brought those in each, we did that in one session actually, and then adjusted the preset we did for the mastering per song, I guess, not channel, but first thing we did is Joe didn't know what bus compression was. And I am humbled, because those mixes sounded pretty good considering there wasn't any of that kind of processing, which is pretty typical for a lot of mixing, where you have a compressor on your 2 bus before you print that is doing a little bit of reduction to, how would you describe it? It just kind of glues everything together by doing a little bit of reduction, so it evens out the performance. So the loud parts aren't quite as loud, but the quiet parts are closer in level. Now, so I had to do that, which I didn't have to do much. So I used a preset because I thought it's good. I just wrote it down because I thought it was that good. It's called Golden Transparency in FabFilter Pro C2. And then I just had a super low threshold, -60, and then a 1.05 ratio. And that was doing about 3 dB reduction the whole time. And so that kind of evened out the performance. So it's constantly doing a little bit. And then that goes into a limiter that's just kind of increasing level that we needed for streaming, and an oh crap limiter at the end. So that was generally my philosophy. That's more of a little bit technical thing. There's not a lot of creativity or ear things there in the same way, or not the same way that it was when we did the rough mix together. Could you speak to that process a little bit of the mastering? Because you were there for that, right? I didn't do that myself.
I was, yeah.
It's been a very collaborative process, which I very much enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really interesting to master, because I guess my experience when I usually master my own soundtrack is, for me, mastering is very little. And for this, it's still pretty into the weeds and nuanced, I guess you could say, nuanced and subtle with what we did for mastering. But usually what I did is even less sophisticated. What I'm used to is just all I'm doing is fade out, fade ins for the beginning and ends of tracks, and just a basic normalizer to kind of have an average level.
So you use the Fruity Loops limiter, or was the Sound Goodizer? Is that the one that
I would never touch a Sound Goodizer. I would never.
No,
touch
people. Is it Sound Goodizer? That's the Fruity Loops clipper.
Yeah.
People make plugins for Pro Tools out of that, like the emulations, because it's such an iconic sound. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. But,
I've never touched that.
but yeah, that is a common thing. Like, we'll use saturation on mixed buses and stuff. We didn't for this because it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I think it's interesting kind of for this as well. Mastering was definitely in the weeds, and we definitely found that, well, it's musical theater. And so we want to really make sure that it stays dynamic. And I think that was something we ran into it's like, all right, you want to do work to make sure everything's at an acceptable level. And so that people aren't twisting their volume knobs too much, but also because it's a performance and it's dynamic and it's live, there is a natural, and it's part of the story. It's part of the performance. People are intentionally, adjusting their volume in their performance naturally. So you want the mix to still reflect what the performers brought to the story and to their performance. And so I think there was definitely like a balancing act of not doing too much in the edit to suppress the dynamics that the performers brought to it.
Yeah, and everyone did a great job. That was it was challenging because I wasn't used to it, but in terms of like, oh crap, I got sent this vocal that I'm very unhappy that I'm working with, which has happened not often, but every once in a while it happens and you're just not having a good time. But this was not that project. It was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I was very happy. I did very little.
I didn't tune anything. Yeah. Well, you can't because the mics are all live. But even if I don't think we would have really needed to too much.
No.
Especially for theater, like you have a little bit more of from listening to reference tracks, you have a little bit more leeway. I feel like in terms of pitch, like there's more vibrato and it's a little more loosey goosey.
Right. I mean, just stylistically, like it's better if you don't overproduce it. But there were steps that we took to augment the performance, and obviously, like this is a live recording, so you're stuck with whatever one take you got when it happened live. But there were small little things I did that to adjust. And we're getting in the weeds, and so I think I can admit to these things. I wouldn't advertise that I did these things, but if you're far enough in the video, this will be a treat for you. But there were, for example, things that you can fix in the edit. And for a project like this, I ran into a couple of times during the performance when a singer was maybe getting a little ahead of themselves, started singing a phrase. This happened maybe four or five times throughout the show. Someone started singing, realized they were coming in a measure early, cut themselves off, and then hit their entrance right. So I was able to address those in the edit by cutting away in the video, muting the audio to just get rid of those false entrances.
Some of you may already have started. Some of you may already have started. Yes.
So that's an example of something that we were able to fix in the edit that turns the this album version into a cleaned up, version that, seems like it doesn't have any mistakes. It's not because the performers didn't make mistakes, but we were able to edit out most of the mistakes. And there are several other things with that affect timing and entrances that we were able to fix in the edit as well.
Yeah, like the edits from when we listened back to the masters, they didn't feel disingenuous. Sometimes, like if I get a drum performance or I try to play drums or something, program drums by hand, and you have to do a lot of work to make it sound right, and I feel like sometimes a little disingenuous, which I've really loved with this project. Is just like, yeah, that is what it is, and it sounds cool, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, I'd love to compare and contrast maybe some of the other work that you've done because this was a live show and because we were quote unquote stuck with our takes. That's not a bad thing. I was very happy with the performances.
And committing to art is good.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I love to talk about how that compares and contrasts with your process because there's other studio recordings where if you're working on guitar, sometimes there's an art to also committing to your guitar tone, for instance, from the amp instead of in post, for instance, as a point of comparison. But I guess because you do a lot of work that's not musical theater, and so
exclusively, pretty much.
Yeah, you're right. So in what ways is this something that is maybe similar to other projects you worked on, or is the workflow totally different?
A lot less effects. Like I love doing like little sound design things to create transitions, and obviously this doesn't need like a riser or like this weird glitched out reverb in the background that you don't really notice what you feel, but like in this, it doesn't make sense, right? Because you did all the backing tracks yourself. Like I just got the stem of that, and those also sounded good. Great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, and that's something too that with this mix, because we use backing tracks live that were already mixed. This wasn't a process of like mixing all the backing track elements separately. They were already mixed down to a stereo file.
Yeah.
And we could have done that. We could have used this as an opportunity to remix it from scratch, but I didn't feel like that was appropriate.
No, especially considering it's bleeding into the mics from the speakers and the PA when you do stage reading.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's something that was a gift for this project because Camp Creator's been a long way in the making, and I wrote it in 2024. I started getting ready for the stage reading summer 2025. It was performed in December. And so the project's been in the oven for a while, but we got this project on, like the mixing for the album, in like a month and a half.
Yeah, and that was like not a month of continuous work.
Right.
I could have got a little faster turnaround, but yeah.
It was made easy because a lot of the creative decisions had already been cemented, right? So that by the time we're doing the editing, it's not like we're still producing it in post. And on another song, you might be making a lot of creative decisions after recording.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've had to do.
As a composer, right? Something I enjoy just about this mixing process is Camp Creator's still not really publicly released. So sharing it with you has been an example of it's one of the first steps I'm taking to share it with other people. So I've really enjoyed just seeing you take it in as you've been working on this.
Yeah.
I want to know what your favorite song was and what you enjoyed about, immersing yourself in the story by being a part of the project.
I wish I remember the track number, but the one where it's ruined by the mix, where it's like, hey, we're going to do this simple, straightforward pop, like piano thing, or like a piano thing. And then it's Walt, right?
Yeah, Walt. Yeah. So in the story,
over-engineers the song that's just a lot in a way that like is not conducive to the vision of the artist's melody there. And there's in the
story, the characters are working on a song.
Right, yes. Right. That's the interesting thing.
I'll take all my troubles and throw them away. I think somehow it all went wrong. This isn't how I want this song.
Perhaps you've heard too much, and now your ears are blind. As far as I'm concerned, I think it turned out fine.
No.
There's a lot of life lessons we learned. Maybe that's just me, like the pain of like, oh, I worked so hard on this. Well, that just doesn't work for the song. So you have to let it go and learning to acknowledge and facilitate the artist's vision. Like sometimes you get to be more creative than other times when you're doing like production and music stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of little nuggets throughout the musical. I was like, I kind of relate to that. Like, I wish I had learned some of those lessons sooner.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because I wrote it like this is a story about teenagers working on their first projects, whether it's these musicians working on their first song together, but a lot of like what the story is really about. It is reflective of my college experience, my young adult experience, like actually getting in the studio in Nashville for the first time. And so it's like, it's obviously like we're using teenagers to tell this story, but a lot of the issues that they go through are things adults are going through in the industry too. Like it's not unique to them, like especially for people who are still up and coming and, trying to put their footing in the industry. Like there's a lot of pressure that people can put on themselves to try to get it right. Right. And that's something that it can be sometimes stressful to collaborate when you feel like there's so much riding on every project. And I've seen that happen. I've seen that in myself. And so this is a project all about trying to learn all these lessons as an artist. I mean, it's a very self-reflective show, but I hope it's something that people can relate with as well.
Is there a song that you like the most? Or do you think you have one that comes to mind?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As far as that goes, like things I relate to the most. I mean, I love a lot of different moments. I love there's a word of encouragement that Mrs. Kingsley gives Audrey, who's a struggling actress, and she comes to Mrs. Kingsley to rehearse in the story, and she gets this word of advice about all the pressure she's putting on herself to. She doesn't understand the craft of acting. She's trying to figure out, well, what do I do as a performer? And Mrs. Kingsley is saying, well, it's not about what you do. It's about what are you saying as an artist. It's not about what accent you're putting on as an actor. It's not about your delivery. It's not about all these superficial elements of your performance. But it's like, well, do you understand what you're saying? Do you understand what the script is saying? And just trying to get to the heart of what art is about, and not just how you express it is what you're expressing.
How do you think I should play it? I can put any application.
Could I ask you first about your character's motivation?
I don't think that's relevant, but how should I perform?
Come on, acting's more than that. It's its own art form. Crying on command.
So that's my favorite song thematically. The one that gets stuck in my head the most, embarrassingly, I think, is The First Time, because I co-wrote that with Kobe Staten.
This may be the first time I don't feel alone.
Brendan Craig also helped co-write the musical as well. And I say embarrassingly just because it's like, well, I would hope that the song that got stuck in my head the most was one of mine.
That's how it goes, though, right? Like,
it's interesting what different songwriters can bring to the project, which is why I wanted to collaborate, throughout the process. Was because, yes, it's my vision. Yes, I have something to say, but I'm aware that all your collaborators can bring their own authenticity to the project as well. If they understand what you're going for, then they can bring something that you wouldn't have brought yourself.
no, I just want to reiterate that this was a great project because it was so collaborative. Like, that was.
Oh. Well, I enjoyed working on it with you. I'm really glad that, because if it was up to me, it would sound a good bit worse. Camp Creator live at the Homewood Theater will be streaming across all music platforms wherever you listen to music. Listen on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal, Deezer. I'm running out of what else could it be streaming on? Yeah.
Is Napster still a thing? Like, as a streaming, what? Rhapsody, that was one back in the day.
Oh, I don't know if this is going to be on Rhapsody or not.
Bandcamp.
You'll be able to use it for your Instagram stories and reels. Yeah, find it on Pandora. Wherever
Dude,
music is
crazy.
sold.
You're in the car, just that pops on. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be on Pandora or not, but definitely all the standard music streaming platforms. Stream Camp Creator live at the Homewood Theater. Link in the description. You can watch the stage reading as it was performed live at the Homewood Theater on YouTube.com. Link in the description. In conclusion, thank you all so much for watching.
Yeah.
Go stream Camp Creator live at the Homewood Theater. Leave a comment down below.
Bye.